Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm ready to go.
You look good, Coach. And
I'm
ladies and
hanging.
gentlemen,
I'm
welcome to
hanging in
the
there.
Underdog Talk podcast, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. And there's something about the underdog. But today, I'm joined by the legendary Coach, and I'm gonna say it, one who is considered to be among the greatest special teams minds in our league of all time. Coach, want me to repeat that again? Just so
No, you
you,
don't have to. Thank you. That's great. Thank
I
you.
was gonna repeat it again, just to give you a little hype up there. The one and only Coach Mike Westhoff. What is up, sir? How you doing today on this Friday? And yeah,
Yeah, I'm good. It's kind of in the middle of our vacation type thing, so I've done a little bit of traveling. I had a great day a couple days ago. Two guys who used to play for me, uh, Zach Thomas
mhm.
and Larry Izzo, that played for me and is coaching now, and their two teenage sons came down, stayed with me, and then I took them shark fishing, and that's what I do. And we caught 20, so we really, it was really fun. We don't kill them, but we're pretty good. We catch them, so it was a lot of fun, and the kids had a ball. They just had a great time. So it was very special for me to get together with those guys, that had such great careers, and then my impetus in helping them get those careers started.
And Coach, you're not scared of the Sharks, are you?
No, no, we're pretty good.
And obviously, as you mentioned, we're in the off season. We just had Austin Eckler on last week. He's enjoying his off season, but you guys are coming back to in August. Is that when you guys return back to
Yeah, yeah, right. End of July, beginning of August.
beginning of August? And I think I want to address the bird in the room or the elephant in the room. Obviously, this is I don't want to expose my dad, but he retired, went back to his job because he was bored. Coach, you retired, went back to the job. Is it because you just love it so much, or and I don't want to say you were bored. I don't want to assume that, but why decide to go back to coaching?
Well, when I left the New York Jets, it was a very frustrating time
Hmm.
there. In 9 and 10, we were really a good football team. We went to two AFC championship games. The way our team was made up, I had a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we changed that.
Hmm.
We made a couple salary cap moves, which I'm still trying to figure out. And we went from being a really good football team to really struggling. And it was frustrating for me. And I got basically so frustrated that it was enough, and I left. I said, that's enough. I'll retire. I was 65. I mean, I could do that. I had very much enjoyed my career. It wasn't everything I had hoped, but nonetheless, a lot of good things. But I didn't like where we were.
Yeah.
I didn't feel good about our football team. Oh, and by the way, I was right. Because since that time when I left, they haven't been in the playoffs since. So what do you want me to tell you? When I was there, we were in the playoffs about 60% of the time. And we were a good football team.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so then I worked for ESPN, did the radio show with Anita Marks. I did the Jets SNY television with Ray Lucas. I really had fun doing that. I really enjoyed it. And then in the middle of the season in 17, I get a call from Sean Payton, who I never had met. I never met him. I knew him. He had a very good record. He won a Super Bowl. But I never met him. And he said to me, look, we think we're really good, but our special teams are just not. He said, can you help us? I said, no, no thanks. I told him, no, I don't want to do it. And next thing, he talked me into it. So I went down and I worked the half of the 17, and we were really good. We lost to that crazy game up in Minnesota, that Minnesota Miracle. And we had just blocked a punt, so I was pretty excited. And then we screwed up how we played defense. You can't play that situation with two deep. You have to be three deep. But anyway, another subject. Then I came back in 18, and we were really good. That's when we had the no call in the championship game against the Rams, or we would have gone to the Super Bowl. We were a very good football team. Then I retired again. And I wrote my book, the book Figure It Out. I did that during the pandemic, which I'm very proud of. And I was pretty happy. I wrote the book and I was doing whatever. I lived down here in Florida. I got to travel a little bit. And then I get another call from Sean, and he had gotten out, and he said, look, if I go back in, how about coming with me and help me get started? So he liked Denver. He knew it was a tough situation because of the salary cap and the thing they got in with Russ and, all that. But he had a lot of respect in the owner, and And so he signed on. So I went with him. The last year I agreed. I was assistant head coach. I coach our special teams. We had I wanted a guy to come with me, Ben Kotwika, who had been with me at the Jets. But in order to get him, we named him the coordinator. So, you can, I have a, I'll let it go at that. Anyway. And so last year I had fun. I had a good year. And at the end of the year, I was going home. And Sean said, Mike, we don't want you to go. He said, the owner wants to talk to you. So I went down I didn't even know he had an office in the building, to tell you the truth. Anyway, I went down and he showed me some statistics, and make a long story short, he basically showed me where our defense ranked and our offense ranked and where I was. And he said, what makes you think we're going to let you go? And so I agreed to come back for a year, and I had to have a couple things done, and I got that taken care of. And then so the idea, I'll come back and coach the season and the training camp, and I'll do it one more time. So that's kind of where I am now. I went out for the draft just to kind of observe, and then I went back during a mini camp when everybody was there. So I wanted to see all the new guys. So I had a chance to help put our stuff in. Well, a lot of it was in, but I helped. And to get ready, and then to get ready for the new year, and of course the very dramatic new rule concerning kickoff and kickoff returns. So all that is something very new on the schedule. So I told him one more time, and I'll do it one more time.
And just like your book, which we'll talk about, you'll figure it out.
I'm going to try.
You'll try, and obviously we'll get into your illustrious career with the Jets, where in that 13 seasons you were with them, I do believe they had 16 kickoff returns in that 13 years, which makes it the most in NFL history in that span.
Yeah, it's the most. Yeah, we were good.
Yeah.
During that time when I was there, we actually had nine different guys that led the National Football League in returns. We had 9. We were good, and we knew what we were doing. We executed it. We practiced it well. We had good guys. We had exceptional guys that worked really hard at it, and we knew what the hell we were doing, and we were good at it. And it really helped us win. What I liked during that period of time is that we were able to be a contributing factor. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's all I want to be. Yeah. Sometimes you need a quarterback, maybe you need Mahomes to dominate and win a game, but I like it when everybody plays a role. Mm-hmm. And like those teams we had when Rex was there in 9 and 10, went to the AFC Championship games. We were good everywhere. We weren't necessarily great. Mark Sanchez was our quarterback. No disrespect, because he did a good, solid job. But wait a minute, we led the league in rushing.
Yeah,
we led the league.
Huh.
We had some good guys. We had LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yes.
We had good offensive linemen. And on defense, we were always in the top 2, 3, 4. We had Darrelle Revis. It was a good group, and I was always right at the top. So the 3 parts put together were a very competitive entity, and we could beat anybody. We certainly didn't always, but we went up to New England and beat them on a Saturday night to go to championship game. I mean, so this was a good football team, and I was very proud to be a part of it. But when it changed, I mean, I actually, Woody Johnson asked me to come down to his office in the city.
Wow.
And I was sitting in there with him in Manhattan, and he wanted me to come back. And I said, Woody, it's pretty simple. I'm either going to retire and go to Florida, or I'm going to end up in Rikers, because I'm going to kill one of those general managers or somebody. So I said, I think it's time for me to go home. And so that's kind of what I did. But I loved it. I loved New York. I loved the fans. They were great. And I really enjoyed my time there. It was fun to go into the city and people were excited. No, we weren't that. But, when we took over, it was a Bill Parcells and Belichick team that they put together that Herman Edwards took. And we were good. It was a talented group. Talented. Then Eric Mangini came along, and he did we kept the talent going. He did a good job with that. Of course, we grabbed Brett Favre that one year. And, until Brett got hurt, I think we were 9-2, something like that. We were good. And he got banged up. I think we ended up 9-8 or something, whatever it was. 9-7, something like that. But it was a lot of fun. and I relished it and enjoyed it. So then I was happy with what I was doing, and then I went to the Saints, and we were good.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Drew Brees. I mean, it was fun.
Yep.
It was a good football team. We were right in every game. And then I was out again. Then I go up to Denver, like, whoa, wait a minute, this is a little tougher.
Yeah.
But we had some good guys that worked hard. Hopefully, the draft will work for us, and we drafted, Nix in the first round, who I'm very impressed with, young man from Oregon, and I'm holding out, and I hope that we can make it. Last year, we started off very slowly.
Yeah.
Then we got really competitive. We played at Kansas City and could have beaten them.
Yes.
Well, then we won like 5 in a row, and we beat the heck out of Kansas City. We beat Buffalo at Buffalo. We beat the playoff team in Green Bay. We played some good football. And then, then we kind of got banged up a little bit and just kind of lost a couple close ones. We played a very, very good Detroit team that I think was really a better football team than we were. And, we ended up coming up short, which was disappointing. But we fought hard. And hopefully now the guys are working hard. They've done a good job. I think we've got a good attitude. So, make a long story short, which I certainly haven't done, it'll be interesting to see what we can do.
And I think the Broncos will have a comeback season. Obviously, the special teams did what they had to do. And thinking of that, we had Bilal Powell on the podcast. Shout out to our only jet we've had on the podcast. But, obviously, I think, your time in the Saints, you had some superstars on that special team. Will Lutt, rookie season, Kamara was returning kickoffs as well.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill, I mean, the jack of all trades.
That's my guy.
Yeah, and I know you really.
I'm gonna take all the credit for him because I found him. Because he didn't even dress. He never dressed a game till I got there. He was inactive every week, and they knew they saw a talented quarterback, but like an action type guy, and so I took him and tried him on special teams. It didn't take me one practice, and I knew this kid was really talented, and he was way tougher than I think anybody knew. So for me, man, I had like a junior all-star. I mean, he was really good, and so Tom Morstead led the league. I had a good group, and we were part of contributing to a winning football team, and that was a lot of fun. And so I'm hoping that somehow we can duplicate that.
100%. And Taysom Hill is truly the jackknife. And I mean, I think he played like 5 positions last year. I mean, he's everywhere.
He's the most, in my opinion, he's the most versatile player in the National Football League.
Oh, easily.
Because he can play quarterback, he can receive, he can block like a tight end, run like a tight end, he can carry the ball like a fullback or a halfback. He could play linebacker. He could punt, he could kick off, he could return punts, he could return kickoffs, he could snap.
Yeah.
This guy can do everything. You could lose 10 players, you wouldn't have to cancel the game. That's how good he is. I mean, I love him. He's a great man, a hard worker, and I'm very, very happy to have had a small part in getting him started.
Now, let me ask you this, Coach. If another coach, not Sean Payton, called you and asked you to come back, would you? Or was it simply because Sean is a great coach, a legend coach, a Super Bowl winning coach? Did Sean have a lot to do with you coming back?
Yeah, sure. When I worked for him, Sean can be as tough as anybody. He's not with me. He's pretty good. But I enjoyed it. I liked working for him. I liked working with him. He was very, very cooperative, and there's things sometimes that we don't always agree on, or I don't. But nonetheless, I have tremendous respect for him. I think he's a great offensive teacher. He's a very knowledgeable coach in all aspects, situations. He works very hard to practice and prepare himself for those situations. Now, to me, sometimes he loves to do so much of it by himself that can get a little frustrating for someone like me. But he's a very good coach. But for someone else, I don't know. It'd be like it'd have to be like Don Shula come back to life before I'm going back. And God bless. I mean, I don't know. I just don't think there's anybody out there that I know well enough. A guy I have tremendous respect for is Andy Reid. Mm-hmm. I think he would be a gentleman to work for. That's just my opinion. I don't know some of the other guys. I really like what the guy at San Francisco helped me.
You're talking about Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. Yeah, Shanahan.
Shanahan.
I have tremendous respect for what he does. I think he's a very good football coach.
Yes.
When we went against him and I watch him, it's kind of the team that I like. They run the ball. They've got aggressive defense. I mean, I'm just impressed with him. Though I'm trying to think of guys that I know pretty well that I have respect for, and I just don't know a lot of them that well. I just don't. The time when don't forget, when and I was fortunate. I think I came along at a time in the National Football League that coaches were absolutely dominant. I mean, I'm at Miami with Don Shula. We'd play Pittsburgh with Chuck Noll. We'd go to Dallas and be Tom Landry. You go up to Chicago, it's Mike Ditka. I can go on and on and on. San Francisco, Bill Walsh. Though they were tremendous coaches and people that I have tremendous respect for. I know we went to one of those preseason games they used to play overseas. And I think it was 1989, somewhere around there. We went to London, the Dolphins, and went against the 49ers. So, of course, you had, Montana against Marino, and you've got Shula against Bill Walsh. Well, our practices were like a miniature Super Bowl. I mean, it was a dogfight. Every single, it was really something to be a part of. And I remember after the game, we won the game. It was a good game. And Bill Walsh came up to me and congratulated me. I didn't really know him. And he said, you guys beat us all week. And he said, one of these days, he said, I got to get you out to San Francisco. Now, he didn't like offer me the job, but I have a note from him that he wrote to me. I put it in my book. You can't help to have tremendous respect for that. Though those times, there were so many, that's kind of the football that I knew. And things are changed. Doesn't make that someone else is not going to be that guy. I don't mean that at all. But, when you start rattling off those names, Joe Gibbs, just that whole crew, it was Chuck Knox, it was an army of really powerful, very, very good football coaches. And it's where I learned. It's where, I learned the business sitting for nearly 16 years, 12 years with Coach Shula. And it was just a great experience to listen to see how he prepared, the way he did, and he did it with such dignity. Don Shula was never accused of cheating. That didn't happen. He was the boss. He knew what. I would argue he wasn't the head coach of the Dolphins. He was the head coach of the NFL. He ran the whole show. He was brilliant, and it was tremendous for me to have worked for him, and to be around those kind of guys. And so I think I learned coming through that system, and that really helped prepare me to be a football coach. It helped me. I was with Jimmy Johnson for a couple years, and Jimmy does a lot of things very well. He really did. He did a lot of things very well. It's just that, he obviously has a great winning record. He knows how to put the team together, I'll tell you that. So those were good times. Though when I look back on it, I don't regret any move I ever made. If I say that, and I kind of want to bite my tongue a little bit. I'm going to go to Las Vegas next week. I'm not a gambler guy, but I like the show. So I'm going to go there, and I drive up to Wyoming. That's my hangout in the winter, Jackson Hole. I have snowmobiles up there and stuff. So I have a pretty cool life. Anyway, I'm going to go there. But when I'm there, I'm going to go into the Raiders complex. I'm going to go in there. And I have a book. I want to give it to Al's son that I wrote. And I wrote a section about Al Davis. And he offered me 3 jobs. I did not want to move my family and my son from Florida to Oakland. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. But I had so much respect for that man. I always kind of regretted, and I thought, the type of football that I like to coach is exactly the kind that he liked to play. I think I would have got along really good with Al. And he offered me 3 jobs, and he kept saying, why are you saying no? I said, I can't. But I used to love talking to him, because he was really a football genius. He irritated everybody because, he was a fighter, but he was don't forget, he was a scout. He was a coach, assistant head coach. He was a GM, general manager. an owner. He was a commissioner of that old league. I mean, he was, that guy was brilliant. I mean, I remember him asking me stuff, why I did certain things. So I know, why do you do that, da-da-da-da-da? Trust me, he knew football. He was a brilliant man. So if I guess there's just one regret that I maybe didn't take that opportunity. And trust me, I don't want to go to Oakland. I don't want to move to Oakland. No disrespect for Oakland, but I lived in Fort Lauderdale. I'm not going to Oakland. Sorry. My son went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School, played football, won the state championship there. Went to University of Pennsylvania, won 2 Ivy League championships. He's got all the rings. I don't have any. He's got them all. Now he's an attorney, went to law school at Indiana, lives in Washington, D.C. He's a very bright young man, very bright. Got 3 great kids. Matter of fact, I was watching a debate last night. I'm thinking my son should be up on that stage trying to be the president. That's no disrespect to anybody. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. I mean, here's this kid that's smart. He's got a great family, Ivy League degree, great high school, state champion, law degree. Anyway, I called him up. I said, would you please get into politics so I can have somebody I will vote for? As soon as this goes on here, I'll be catching all kinds of hell. I don't care. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just telling you what I feel. I can't be the only one that was disappointed. That's just the reality. But nonetheless, you ask me, would I really want to go work for another coach? And no, and I don't. I just don't. I like Sean. I want to stick with him. I want to help him. I believe in him. I think he's a great teacher. I mean, I used to sit there on the sidelines and watch him and Drew Brees. And I mean, it was at the top of the food chain. Those 2 guys, they knew football. They knew how to do it, how to attack it. And Sean knows how to teach it. He knows how to teach it. And so I believe that he'll win, that he'll get this thing going. He'll win at Denver. I believe that. I may not be around that long for it, but I think he's got a chance to get it turned around. Because there were some games last year that we played as well as anybody. I mean, we beat the hell out of Kansas City. We went up to Buffalo, and yeah, there were some crazy things that happened, but we did a lot of good things to win the game. And so, I think Buffalo's good. I'm a big fan of Allen. I mean, I love the guy. I think he's an incredible quarterback. Though I'm a fan. And we beat them. So, I know he can do it. So, no, I'm really not very interested in going with anybody else. I'm interested in going home when the time comes. And I loved the experience that I had in working with the people that I was working with. I'll give you one quick example. Let me give you an actual example. In my first off season at Baltimore, 1983, we were coaching the Senior Bowl. I was with Frank Cush. We were in Baltimore. We were in the Baltimore Colts. Dan Marino was our quarterback. And we were down in Mobile. And at that time, the Senior Bowl was different. The first 2 practices were double sessions. Now the guys would go on strike. They'd walk out of the building. They couldn't do that. But anyway, it was just a tougher time. Yeah. Only coaches were allowed on the field. Only scouts and personnel were allowed in the stands. It wasn't open to anybody. All right. So now I'm helping coach. I was special teams. I coached tight ends, and I helped with our offensive line. So I'm running a drill in the end zone, and I've got tight ends and tackles, and I'm doing a little drill. And I'm getting ready to start my little drill, beginning of practice, and I look up, and they're standing right in front of me with their notebooks, Don Shula, Tom Landry, and Chuck Noll. And I'm thinking to myself, now this is my first year. I mean, I'm just out of college. I'm just this young kid. I'm 30, 33 years old, something like that. I didn't know anything. Hell, I didn't know. And I'm standing and I'm thinking, they didn't come down here to look at me, but they're going to hear every word I say. So I said to myself, Mike, you better get your A game on, buddy. And every single day to this time now, when I step out there and I talk to those guys, I act like Don Shula, Chuck Noll, and Tom Landry are standing right there. That's why I coach the way I coach.
That's why you coach the way you coach, because every day you're 100% in, you're not bullshitting, you're giving it your all. And I think that's what people should do. And obviously, were you there still when the Colts moved to Indianapolis?
Sure.
2 years.
Sure, I was there. I was part of it.
What was that like? Obviously?
Well, you know, the rumor was out that, you know, that Baltimore had really taken tough times as a city.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the steel industry had collapsed. The shipping was down. One of the big ports had closed. They just were in hard economic times. And, you know, the stadium was old. It was ancient. The team, we were trying to put a new team together. Robert Irsay was the owner. And the amount of money that he made, excluding the TV deal, which is equal for everybody, was about the lowest in the league. It just wasn't there. You know, it just wasn't there. And so, you know, the rumor was we were going to move. And teams were interested. I thought that we would move to Phoenix because Frank Cush used to coach there. And I thought that's what was going to happen. It did not. But then Indianapolis came along and they built a stadium. And they made a really good offer. And Mr. Irsay, he took the deal, and then we moved. Now, the reason it took place when it did is because the city of Baltimore owned our complex. So therefore, you know, we kind of had to get out before they could come in and close the door. Or all of our stuff would be sitting in the, you know, all your scouting reports, everything. So the idea was the midnight move. So the Mayflower Moving Company, which was headquartered in Indianapolis, gathered trucks. They rendezvoused in Pennsylvania. Then they just kept coming in. They brought a manpower crew, and we knew they kept, well, there weren't that many of us, a couple coaches, 2 trainers, couple film guys. There weren't many, trust me. And they told us to come back, go home for dinner, do whatever, but come back at 6 o'clock because the trucks are going to be here, and we got to pack everything in the building. Now, I was a strength coach. So here I am trying to put a weight room together. It's raining. Oh, man, that was miserable. Anyway, so they showed up, and we just got everything out, and everything was gone. And the next day, of course, when so many people went back to work and found that their office was totally empty, that was a very, very sad and emotional time. But Indianapolis was great. The city was great. They took care of us. We moved into a nice facility. We took over an old grade school, but they built a new place for them, and they just did it right. The stadium was beautiful. The ownership did a nice job, and it was a good move for a lot of people, a tough move for many people, and for me it was just we had just bought a house in Baltimore, but it was okay. We sold it right away and bought a little place in India, and it worked out. It worked out. It was fine, and then I went from there down to the Colts or down to the Dolphins, so it worked out pretty good for me. But yeah, I was part of it. I was very much part of that whole thing.
And obviously now I want to jump into your book, Figure It Out. Obviously it's on all the platforms. It's in Barnes & Noble too, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but best place right now, because since I went back to work, I kind of pulled off a little bit from it, is at Amazon. You can still get it through Amazon.
Yeah.
I'll really jump back into it. I've received a number. I'm going to do gal wants to do a podcast, maybe like a similar type thing, like a 30 for 30, maybe something like that. She's talking to me about doing that. I've had actually several movie companies contact me about trying to make a movie out. I have to get a screenplay made, which I will do. I will do it in August, and I'll take a shot at it. I mean, it's a good story. It's a true story. It actually happened. I was in a fortunate situation, I believe. All of a sudden here I'm faced with being a special teams coach I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything. I didn't want to do it. But Frank was going to fire this one guy, and I talked him out of firing him. I shouldn't have done it. The guy was an idiot. I should have let him fire him. But anyway, so I took it over. Well, now we were on strike. That year we had that strike.
Yeah.
And so at least I got a chance to prepare. So as I'm looking, I'm thinking, I don't know any of this stuff. I've got to learn rules. And so I started to put things together and figure it out. And two things I learned very quickly. Number one, there was very little, if any, innovation in special teams. Everybody did exactly the same thing. There was also very little, if any, regulation. You could do everything. So I did it all. I tried everything. And a lot of the rules got changed because of it, but too bad. I gave it a shot. I loved it. And I really felt that I could out-innovate people. You know, I wanted to, here I'm going to kick off coverage. What did I know about kickoff coverage? You got 10 guys run down the field. But there was no rules of how to line up. You could do everything. So I went into our defensive coordinator, Bud Carson, one of the great defensive minds in NFL history. You know, the Pittsburgh Steeler guy.
Yep.
Brilliant coach. Brilliant. I said, Bud, I would like, when I'm looking at my kickoff coverage, I'd like to treat it like I'm blitzing. I said, help me. He said, okay. He said, let's sit down. He said, the first thing you've got to realize when we blitz is that we always have an edge, an edge side that we're not going to let the guy escape. He can never get out over there. He said, use the boundary as your 12th man. Kick off toward the boundary. And then he started showing me how to put things in levels and how to move people. Though I took my kickoff coverage and copied basically Bud Carson's Pittsburgh Steelers blitzing defense. And we went everywhere. And I think it was the best coverage scheme that anybody's ever done in the NFL. I thought it was greatest. Guys today, if they had to block it today, they'd go home, they'd call home. They wouldn't know what the hell to do. It was fun. So that's how I started doing everything. Then I took the running game, the kickoff return stuff, and I was an offensive line guy, so I just patterned it after offensive line running type plays. You know, how timing and crucial, you know, when I'm hitting a blocker, how far should I be from him, all those little things. And how to double team, how to trap, how to hide, how to wedge, you name it. And so it evolved, and I loved the evolution process of it. And so it became, you know, for me, it was like, you know, the perfect place to be as a coach. Because I had freedom to try things. I had some innovation I could try. You know, back then the rules were, like, let's say on a punt, you know, when you see a double team out on the gunner, or we call them flyers, but you know how they double vice them. Okay, if you sustained contact inbounds, you could, if you initiated contact inbounds, you could sustain it out of bounds. Out of bounds, you could carry them out. Though we taught it, and I hate that. I don't care. Who cares what I say? We called it Gatorade. We would lock on and grab the guy and run him and throw him over the Gatorade table. We threw him right over the table.
Wow.
We were tough. We were really tough. I'll give you a good example, and I'm proud of this. You remember when Dan Reeves left Baltimore and went to the New York Giants? Mm-hmm. He called me, and he said, Mike, I need 2 favors from you. He said, first of all, I'm going to make my son-in-law, Joe DeCamellis, special teams coach. Can you help him? I said, sure. So he and I got together. I spent a lot of time with him. He said, secondly, I've done a lot of research on the Giants. And one thing for sure, every time when they've been good is because they're physical. He said, I'm putting together a film that I want to be able to show the New York Giants of the type of football I want to play. He said, can I use your special team stuff? I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
He said, because you're the most physical I've ever seen. So I said, sure. So anyway, that's all part of it. You know, I started, of course, those rules changed and you do some of that stuff, but that's what I liked. And I got the guys to believe in it. I'm still trying to do it. I'm still trying. I still do it. That's the way to play. You know, we don't play dirty. We don't get penalized. I'm really tough on penalties. Yeah. The other thing, I was fortunate up in New York, you know, the headquarters are in Manhattan. And I used to get on a train and go into Manhattan. I'd go in the league office, and I got to know Mike Pereira very well. And I would sit with Mike, and I'd sit with the officials. And they taught me everything, how they call things, how I could do reports on officials. Sean does one now. I was doing it back in, I don't even know what the hell year it was, back in a long time ago, long before I knew him. Well, but 2001. Anyway, for the first 8 years I was at the New York Jets, we were the least penalized team in the National Football League. Well, wonder why we got in the playoffs. Wait, think because Herman Edwards is a great coach? Please, don't get me started. We know what we did things well. We coached, we really tried. We didn't get penalties. You know, and we had some good players. Yeah. You know, those guys, Belichick, they know how to put a team together. We had Curtis Martin.
Oh yeah.
We had Chad Pennington and you know and those guys. I mean, these were good football players. And Vinny Testaverde. Wayne Corbett, Lavernius Cole, Santana Moss. On defense, yeah, we had an all-star team. Abraham and Ellis. Come on, those guys are good. I mean, they were good players, and we were tough. It was fun. It was really fun. And I had an all-star team. I had a ball. So, the Jets, I loved it. I loved going in the city. I loved the fans. I got to know Fireman Ed. I liked all that stuff. I thought it was the greatest. I remember I was with my girlfriend from Long Island. I lived out there when we were at Hofstra. And she was really cute. Don't get me started. I'm driving me so long. Anyway, she and I were in the city going to go to a dinner. She was all dressed up. She had a fur coat. She was really cool. And anyway, these guys, it was a Friday night. So I'm standing in front of Madison Square Garden. It's freezing cold in the winter. And here comes some guys, a Friday night. It's like 7 o'clock. I'm standing waiting for a cab. And here comes some guys, like 5. Now, of course, they've been drinking since 4, They left Wall Street. They went right to the bar. So they recognized me. And they said, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" Da, 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 da. And then one guy said, "Coach, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm waiting on a taxi." Because it was cold. I had a top coat on. It was cold. And he said, "Well, why aren't you in a limo?" I said, No. The Giants run around in limos. The Jets, we just take taxis. Well, they loved it. I loved that kind of stuff. I just loved it. Yeah. I thought the Jets were like the team of the people.
Yes.
The workers, the bartenders, they all loved the Jets. Yeah. And I loved being a part of that. I really did. I loved being a part of it. It was something special for me. It just gave me a great feeling every time I went in there. And when we played, and we were so close, we're knocking on the door to go to Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden, Mike comes along and makes some changes like, I don't know what the hell he thought he was doing. We get rid of Alan Faneca and sign Plexico Burress. Now, tell me how that works. I'm ready to throw up. But anyway, that's why I retired. Yeah. But now I'm back trying it one more time, and we'll see what happens. But I've had a very, very fortunate career with some really good people, and I got started at the basis of learning from the very best guy that ever did it, Don Shula.
And, first 3 people to buy Figure It Out, we'll have a link in the YouTube bio. Send me a screenshot. We'll get you some gear out to you as well, because it is a phenomenal book, and I can't wait to get my copy in. Now, my final question for you is, who is the best special teams player you've seen in your illustrious career?
Well, you've got so many different categories.
Best kick returner.
Okay. Kick returner, that's a tough one. And much as I love some of the guys that I have.
You go Hester?
No, to tell you the truth, every time I play against Devin Hester, he couldn't run across the street from us. I love him, kid, but we beat the heck out of him. Me, I'd take Deion Sanders. Yeah. I love Deion. Now, for us, I picked in my all-star team, I picked O.J. McDuffie as my punt returner, and I picked Leon Washington as my kickoff returner. Yeah, Washington. They play. I put together a special teams all-star team. The good news is they all played for me. And Tom Morstead was my punter. I mean, I had Reggie Roby and Ron Stark. Wow. Those guys are all pretty good. I had Taysom Hill, and I had Eric Smith, Brad Smith, Leon Washington. I had all those guys. So I've had some really good players. But if I had to pick a guy that could do everything, and I think it's a crime that he's not in it, but I would take Steve Tasker. Steve Tasker deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He could wreck the game. He could wreck the game. We coached one year in the Pro Bowl. Now, this was back in like the early 90s. This is when they actually played the game. Now they play touch. And the game was good. The game was the winners got money. Then I needed the money. I was sending my son to an Ivy League education. So it was great for me. Steve Tasker was the MVP. I just turned him loose. We were blocking kicks. Oh, the other guy, they were so mad at me. They were fuming at me. The other guys on the other staff. I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. And we just beat them. Steve Tasker, tremendous. Guys like that. I had Larry Izzo. That was a great one that played for me. Bernie Parmalee, guy's coaching now. He's at Baltimore. Maybe the toughest guy that I've ever had. I had an all-star team. I've had all-star, great players. Chris Hayes, the kid I had with the Jets, I loved Chris. He was so good. And They're just good, just a whole bunch of good guys that played exceptionally well. Now, don't forget, Brad Smith. With Brad when he was at the Jets, he was a great football player. Covered so many things well, and smart guy. So it was, unfortunately, sometimes for the guys that I coach now, I hold them to such a high standard because I'm used to seeing it up here.
Yeah.
And I'm not used to down below. I mean, for most of the year this year, we were ranked first most of the year. And then when we made one mistake and it dropped us a couple categories down. But I don't know, if you add up this year, if you add up your 2 punt returns, kickoff and punts, and you add up your 2 coverages, kickoff and punts, we're first in the NFL. So what, we think we're not any good? We're first. We're pretty good. So those poor young kids, when they come in, I was there that week. They're scared to death because I only know one speed. The poor guys. I'm sure they're not very happy I'm coming back. Now, what's interesting, though, the veterans, a lot of veterans came to me and asked me to come back. Wow. And they said, when you were first here, we were hoping you'd only stay 1 year. They said, but being ranked at the top, they said, we kind of like it. We don't want to lose it. They said, so come back. We like it being up there. We walk around the building, we're pretty cocky. Everybody thinks I'm arrogant. I'm not. Yeah. I have tremendous, but I actually am cocky. Because that's the way I just know, like I'm used to watching Dan Marino in practice. Dan Marino practiced so hard. Every play, he just believed that if he threw the perfect pass, you couldn't stop it. You couldn't defend it. Drew Brees, watch him practice sometime. Though I know how they think and how they practiced and how they worked. And so that all that kind of thing has influenced my coaching career.
Wow. And truly one of the best to do it. And I'm excited to see what you guys are going to do, a.k.a. the Broncos, because I think it's going to be another sensational season.
We're going to try. We got some brand new things. I don't know. We're going to find out. I don't know how it's going to work. We're going to see.
Well,
it's all different. It's a challenge. I'll tell you that. It's a challenge. So I've spent a lot of time working on it. So I hope I'll be prepared.
Yes, sir. That's all you can do, guys. Please figure it out.
Yes, please.
Send me a screenshot. We'll get you some gear out to you if you get it. Again, Coach, thank you so much for taking your time, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on this video. Until next time, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I'm the Underdog. Out.